What's up, Thumpers? Welcome to a non-spoiler review of Deadpool numero dos. We're going to be talking about this movie. Non-spoilers, obviously, as I mentioned, because the movie's not out yet, and we don't want to ruin it for you.
Yeah.
We got a chance to see it. Well, you're seeing this on Tuesday as the embargo is lifting, but we got to see it Thursday.
Yeah.
We rushed after shooting an episode of Cineverse. Thank God we made it, and we actually got really good seats, thankfully, too.
Yeah.
I was very surprised.
We got some reserved seats. That was very nice.
Yeah. This screening kind of was unexpected. I wasn't expecting to get invited to it. I just happened to someone on Twitter who usually posts early advanced screenings posted it, and I jumped on it right away, and thankfully we were able to get it. So this was actually really cool to just kind of go and be able to experience this movie early, because it wasn't really on my mind at all. And I didn't really know kind of how to feel about the fact that we were going to go watch this movie. And I think that kind of was better, because I think I thought about it a lot less. And I was just like, we walked in, sat down, and I was like, all right, let's just go. And the movie started kind of immediately too, which was sort of nice. You tend to sit in those screenings for a long time, just waiting.
Yeah. It started pretty quickly. They were even they had things like scan codes for Snapchat, stuff like that.
Deadpool did a little intro, which was really funny.
Yeah.
But Cameron, you are someone who, interestingly enough, was not the biggest fan of the first movie.
Yeah, on this channel I kind of have a reputation now for not liking it. And here's the thing,
Whatever.
I don't hate it.
You like what you like.
I don't hate it. It was just more of a case at the end of the day, it really comes down to, it was a comedy film that I didn't find funny.
Sure.
And that might come from, and call me a snob if you want, I think that comes from my being in the comedy world for 8 years kind of experience.
Yeah. That's what you do. It's your thing.
And usually there's kind of a thing about what's the first joke you think of? Maybe it's a gut thing, but usually you'll kind of be like, don't necessarily go with that because it's a joke probably 800 people have thought of, or something along those lines. And I feel like the first film, and there's a little bit of this in the second film, is kind of has a lot of what's the first most obvious joke? And I don't tend to find it very funny. It might also be a little bit in the delivery, because as in the comics, I actually like Deadpool. I'm, however, though, not somebody who can there are some comic series I can read 25 issues, really sit and devour. Deadpool's someone I kind of small dose it. I like him better on teams. The first film didn't really work for me. Cool for other people who liked it. It just... it was a comedy film, and to me, the height of comedy, just being someone who says fucking dick a lot, not the funniest thing.
Yeah.
But no judgment on anybody who did like it. But I went into this one a little more hopeful, because when we had watched the trailer, the teaser for the when the channel had come down here, we watched the trailer for the second film, connected to the Logan.
Yeah.
And when I said I really didn't like the first movie, but I was hopeful for this one, and that was the trailer that had him running across the street to the Superman music.
Yeah.
But I was hopeful because he would have other characters to bounce off of, Cable and things like that. So I did go into this with an open mind, and I ended up liking the movie quite a bit. I still hold true that I think I only laughed twice, but I think the upside of David Leitch directing it, the John Wick. One of the John Wick directors also did Atomic Blonde, which I also really liked. This felt more like an action movie with some jokes, and if the jokes don't land, that's okay. I thought it was really stylish. Him being able to bounce off other people was great. I thought Josh Brolin was great. I really loved Domino. I, however, am very interested to see people who did love that first movie, how they're going to feel. Because it's not that there's a drastic change. Deadpool is still Deadpool. But this felt a little bit more like an X-Men movie to me. And that's not just because there was a bunch of characters, but also how the plot was laid out and how it went from thing to thing. I was like, oh, this kind of feels more like an X-Men movie.
Yeah.
Whereas the first Deadpool movie, despite the fact that it took the first and second acts and just kind of went like this, so the movie started when he was Deadpool, was a fairly generic, as a plot goes, superhero origin story.
Yeah.
Here's the character, he becomes the Thing, gonna go fight the Thing, third act, CG battle. This one felt more like an X-Men film, in that it goes to this place and that place and these things and these people happen and this guy's betraying this person and all this other stuff. So it worked for me, and it also gave Deadpool more people to play off of. There was a lot less breaking of the fourth wall, and I think that might have been because he had other characters to bounce off
Less
of.
opportunities. Yeah.
The Deadpool that really breaks the fourth wall a bunch is in the first 5 minutes, and after that it kind of calms down. made it work for me. I don't know if I can see other people walking away thinking this one wasn't as funny or wasn't as successful or this, that, and the other. There's a couple moments too that I could see some people getting very angry at. And there's one or two questionable things for me, even a couple hours removed from seeing the movie, where I'm like, I kind of wonder if we're gonna get some think pieces written about this one, and not necessarily in the offensive humor category. But generally, this felt more like an X-Men movie where the word "fuck" is thrown around a lot more and it's a lot more violent, which I didn't necessarily mind. But yeah, I thought it looked stylish. This version of Deadpool reminded me more, if anybody's read Uncanny X-Force from Ender's Run, a little bit more sympathetic. And there's even, I think, a couple little story beats taken from that run that are put in this. And that's my favorite X-Men story of all time, is that version of X-Force. So yeah, generally overall, very successful movie. And I did end up looking at it more as an action film with comedic beats, and some worked, some didn't, but the ones that didn't, the movie looked good enough, and I liked the characters enough to keep going on the ride.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think you made that point when we were driving home from the movie, saying that like the first movies are very much a comedy that has a lot of action sequences in it, big action sequences, and I do agree that this movie is definitely an action film. This one, I told you this, it's kind of an extreme example, but this kind of feels more kind of like Lethal Weapon, where you've got more than one main character sort of teaming up and going on a mission, and it's more about the mission and sort of the action of that mission, and then it has little bits of like humor sprinkled throughout the whole thing. I'm kind of in agreement with you. I think there are, for me, some of the comedy worked more for me, and some of it didn't work as much, and a lot of it is sort of like references to things or just sort of like one-line little quips that I think worked really well. But I do agree. I think for me, I didn't go into this movie hoping that like if this movie doesn't make me burst out laughing every 5 minutes, it's a failure. To me, that wasn't the goal. If there are certain moments that do make me laugh, then I think it does its job pretty well. I did also mention to Cameron that I kind of had the Borat effect when it came to this movie. There's a lot of stuff in Borat that I thought was hilarious, but a lot of it was in the trailer. When I saw it in the context of the movie, it was still funny, but it didn't land as well as I think it could have had it not all been in the trailer. And there's a little bit of that for me with this movie as well. There's some stuff that I thought in the trailer was absolutely laugh out loud hilarious that I thought was still funny in the movie, but it didn't hit as hard as if I got to experience it for the first time. And I think that kind of goes back to, with the first movie, they sort of hit this stride of, we know how to market this movie from a comedic standpoint. And I think with the second movie, they tried to hit that as well. And I think I like what they did with the second movie, where they created bits like the Deadpool running across the street changing into with the Superman music. I like the Bob Ross thing. I almost honestly would have been fine with them just doing that and not even really making a conventional sort of trailer. I guess you have to do that because people still go to the movies. They want people in the theater to experience that, and I'm sure they want people online to sort of experience that. Yeah. So it's really tough. But I did actually really enjoy this movie. This was a lot of fun. And yes, this is much more of an X-Men movie. Deadpool is interacting with so many more characters. Yeah. And on top of that, it allows it to not be really just about him. Mm-hmm. It allows it to be about other characters. Yeah. Cable and the X-Force characters that they bring in, and even his relationship with Colossus and how that sort of has changed. I will say I was hoping to see a little bit more of certain characters. Like I was hoping to get a little bit more out of Negasonic Teenage Warhead and sort of see what that character has been up to. You get pieces of it, but I would like to see a little more. But I get it because the main story is about Deadpool and Cable and the mission that they're on. Kind of the same thing goes for Domino. I thought that Domino was going to be a much more prominent character sort of from the beginning, and she doesn't really come in until I would say
the halfway point.
About halfway into the movie, yeah. And I think that's more of a me thing. I think that's sort of an expectation that I put on myself because I don't know Deadpool from the comics that extensively, and I don't know Domino that well either from the comics. So I think with people sort of hyping it up and talking about it and getting, Zazie Beetz, this actor from Atlanta who's really, really good on that show, to come in and play this part, I thought, okay, cool, this is going to be something that we're going to get to explore from beginning to end. And what they do with Domino, I really do enjoy.
I think they're setting up. It sounds like X-Force is going to be the next movie. They're setting it up.
I think Drew Goddard is writing and directing that.
Yeah, so I think that'll be interesting. Overall the movie worked. I mean, there was definitely some stuff I will say that I still kind of roll my and again, this is just me. And some of the jokes are in the trailer, like calling Josh Brolin Thanos
Right.
and stuff like that. That shit never really works for me.
Yeah.
It to me, in the realm of humor, that feels very similar to like the epic movie or date movie kind of comedy, where it's like someone's gonna walk in and they look like Amy, and I know it's really Josh Brolin, it's not someone that looks like him, but it's like someone walks in and they call her Amy Winehouse. That's the joke. You said a thing I recognize. I recognize that. I recognize Thanos.
Yeah.
I know what the DC universe is. He said it in the movie.
Right.
And there's titters of laughter, and if you find that funny, that's fine. To me, to me that doesn't work. That's still in the movie. There's some of that, which I was just kind of like, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Those are things we know. But there's not
yeah.
really. That's the thing. Is like they're not really jokes. There's
Right.
not really a joke.
It's just kind of for the fans to be like, oh, it's DC.
Yeah, it's saying things that people recognize. So there was still some of that in there that I was like, all right. But I think like this movie to me works better than the first because of the other characters he gets to interact with. It has been asked how much is TJ Miller in the movie? Understandably, less than the first one. He's still in it, but less than the first one.
Because I think this is a longer movie, right?
I think so too.
Yeah, I don't know if it's by much. It could be 15, 20 minutes. But because of that, we spent a lot more time with the other characters, and Weasel's only in it. I think we try to count out. I think it's like at most 5 to 6 scenes.
If that even, it might be less than that.
It's not a lot. It's not a lot.
So and there's what made this work too is like the comedy that did work for me is like there's a lot of sight gags and stuff like that did work way more than naming things that people are familiar with. But overall, I thought this movie was genuinely a success if it worked for me. But I'm very interested to see like people who are big crazy fans of the first one, who like really go at me, or other people who didn't like the first one. Are they gonna walk out of this disappointed, or are they gonna be happy?
Yeah, for sure.
That's anyone else's opinion. I walked away going like, oh, I really dug this one. I could see myself watching this one again.
Yeah, and we got in the car and I went on Twitter and I went to go see what other people were saying from who got to see the movie early.
Yeah.
And it seems like mostly the people were really, really positive about it. They seem to really, really like it. So yeah, I'm also very curious to see the people who love the first one, if they're gonna feel equally good about this movie, or if they're gonna be like, oh man, this is just so different from the first one. I prefer Deadpool being on his own and all that kind of stuff, and some of the other things that we mentioned that we can't talk about because of spoilers. I'm curious about that, but I will say there are also some fun little Easter eggs in there as well.
Yeah, there are. The effects, I think, obviously they have more of a budget. They got more stuff to do. So, nothing to Tim Miller, who did the best he could with what he had, but the CG in this movie feels more weighted. Like it feels like things have weight to them. The first one has like kind of a little bit of a floaty, a lot of cars turning more times than a car would ever turn.
Yeah.
Whereas this one's got like some big car scenes, and the cars kind of like turn once and stop. And
right. And I do think also having David Leitch helps a lot, because having those
guy who does practical.
A lot of practical fight stuff, and the fight choreography does look really,
cool.
really
There's
good.
It's
really
cool
well done. If you liked Atomic Blonde and if you like John Wick, they're gonna get a flavor of that in this movie for sure.
There's nothing quite like I will say there's nothing quite like the Atomic Blonde single shot. There's nothing like that.
Yes,
so if you think you're gonna get him directing this, if you think you're gonna get some crazy like single shot of Deadpool going through an apartment, doesn't happen. I will say.
I would say, without giving too much away, the beginning is like the most you get of that.
Yes. Yeah. I would say so too.
Yeah. But I did like the fact, it's funny because there's a lot of people out there who did not get a chance to see Atomic Blonde. Check out Atomic Blonde. It's actually really, really good. Charlize Theron does an amazing job.
It's not. It's more Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy than John Wick with Charlize Theron.
Yes.
So I know some people walked away a little disappointed with it. Understandably, they marketed it like really.
They marketed it like John Wick.
It's not quite John Wick, but it's really stylish, really great. Charlize Theron kills it in that. So if you haven't seen Atomic Blonde, it's on HBO now. So if you have HBO Go,
there you go.
Definitely watch it. It's killer.
Yeah. Just to wrap up my final thoughts on it. We're going to do a spoiler review of the movie next week once it's actually officially out, once people will see it. But I will say I did enjoy this movie a lot. Some of the jokes work, some of the jokes don't. The action's really cool. The CG is fun, and it's really good a lot of times. And when it's not, they actually call it out. They're very aware of it. And I think it works great. And I would say stay off the internet or try to avoid as many spoilers as you can.
Yeah.
There are some fun Easter eggs, and definitely stay through. I will say, I will spoil this. There was no end credit
that we saw. Sometimes press stuff, they don't put things.
Yes. So be aware of that in our screening, there was nothing at the very end. It's still worth it for you to stay till the very end because there might be something. But there definitely is a credits thing in the middle.
Yeah.
So yeah. Any final thoughts for you?
Yeah. I mean, check it out. If you weren't into the first one, you might dig this one. I know I won't give away the name, so they don't get called out. But there was a couple of critics we saw there, and I talked to one or two, and they asked me because now now it's like I feel like I'm known for not liking the first film. Working at a geek company and not liking Deadpool. But they asked me what I thought, and I said, like, I'm like, I really dug it, and I didn't really dig the first one. And they went, me too. I didn't dig the first one at all, and I really thought this was good.
Yeah.
So your mileage may vary, but check it out. I think it's a lot of fun. I mean, obviously, there's more. There's other little things. Maybe if I'm able to do the spoiler review, I can talk about a couple things here and there. But generally, I think like as an action movie, it was a fun action movie.
Yeah,
I had fun with it.
I agree. Cameron, where can everybody find you on the interwebs?
Go to twitter.com/JurassicAlien, and if you don't watch Cineverse, do so. Me, this guy, and Elizabeth Harris, we really dig deep into some cool stuff, man.
Cameron's a killer. You can just find me at Adam Havoc. Brand new Hyper Heroes coming out this week. We got some stuff coming up on Solo, a Star Wars story, Deadpool 2, and as Cameron said, Cineverse. Make sure you also check out our Patreon, patreon.com/hyperrpg. We have a bunch of killer tiers on there, and we're getting really close to hitting our next goal. So check that out.
Yeah.
And just find me all over the interwebs at Adam Havoc.